Hopefully, we will not lose electricity, but if we do and I suddenly disappear, I'm fine, but we'll reschedule if we lose electricity, and hopefully most of you guys will be okay through the storm also. As the majority of you know, we are in listen-only mode, and if you have any questions, go ahead and type them out. I will try to keep my eye on that screen and answer them as we go, but if I miss some, sometimes I will try to get them after the call. And just so you all know, I remember to hit the record button, so if anyone on your team misses this and you want them to see it, it will be out on our website by Friday, if not sooner. Okay, so let's get started today. We are working in version 2014 or 5.1. Just a little bit of housekeeping so you know. Suzanne and I yesterday sat through a demonstration with Sage for the 2015 version. Now, those of you who have recently upgraded to 2014, don't worry. As you know, normally we don't like to install the new version right off the bat. We wait 3 to 6 months before we even start. But quite honestly, I was impressed by quite a few of the features that they added, and I'm going to be excited to show them to you as soon as we get our copy. It's still in beta right now, but soon to be released. But as soon as we get it, we will be having a Tech Tuesday to show you the new things that are coming in the 2015 version. We also have some interesting payroll stuff that's going to be coming out very shortly that will deal with the healthcare reform that we are going to have to start reporting in 2016. As soon as we get that loaded and get it figured out, we will be contacting those of you that do payroll and start to get that installed and working on that with you also in preparation for next year. Unfortunately, there's going to be a lot of work for the employers who are providing payroll and healthcare and so forth. But once you get it in there, it'll be a lot easier. It's kind of a one-time setup thing, and then hopefully it'll be a lot easier for you in the future. So let's go back to today's discussion. We're going to talk about user maintenance, and then we're going to talk about navigating the menus. Now, for the majority of us, most of you weren't there at your places of employment when you started, when the system started up. So nobody really knows about user maintenance, and a lot of people don't even know how to get to it or, you know, how to add a new user. So that's what we're going to discuss today. The user maintenance is in the Library Master menu, and when you first open up your Sage product, you are in Library Master. There's two ways to tell that. One is down here at the bottom. You'll notice down here it says Library Master, so we know that's the module that we are in. And up here at the top is my Library Master menu across the top bar. And what I want to do is I want to click on my user maintenance menu item. Now, in here is where you are going to define your users. I'm going to click my magnifying glass, and I'm going to show you that I have 2 users. Now, I myself am a power user, so I've actually created a role called Super, and what that does for me is it gives me access to everything in the system. And another day we'll cover role maintenance. Today we're not going to, but what you want to do with your roles, you look at it different ways. Some people will do roles based on tasks. So in other words, if I'm a larger organization, maybe I have salespeople, and I only want the salespeople to have certain tasks that they're allowed to do. And then I have an accounting group, and you know, maybe I have a purchasing group. So they'll set up roles based on the type of tasks and menus that they want their users to have. Other organizations they're much smaller, and they don't need to break it up in that manner. So maybe what they'll do is they'll create a level 1 user or a level 2 user, or role, shall I say, meaning that, yeah, this person's a level 1 and they can get in all these things, but the main thing I don't want them to get into is, you know, setting up users, setting up roles, our utilities and so forth, where we are rebuilding files. So there's no set rule on how you have to set up your roles. It's just something to think about. Think about it in this respect also. When I have a new user join the company, how do I want that user, what role or roles do I want that user to have? Now, once again, back to our user here. We have no set rule on how your user log in. If I've set you up, you'll notice that I normally ask for initials because I think everybody can remember initials. You can use the user name. If you want, John to sign in as John, he can sign in as John. But we do have a few fields here that I wanted to go over with you. First of all, your user login, then you can put in a first name and you can put in the last name. Last name is optional. But there is a user code here. Now, what this user code does for you is it identifies you throughout the system, not the login, the user code. So this is the code. When I go to look up a journal entry and I double-click and drill down on that journal entry, this is the code that's going to tell me who initiated that entry. This is also the code that we can have print on our registers and reports if we choose to do so. So keep that in mind. That user code actually has to be unique. We cannot have people with the same user code even though they have a different user login. So it does have to be a unique code. And this user code is 3 characters long. Now, you can require your system to have passwords, or you can tell the system, I may not need passwords. I'm going to go over in a few minutes where that setup option is. There's another option I want to show you, and so we'll look at both of those at the same time. So you can have the user put in a password. Now, you'll notice from my Bob Builder here, he does have a password where I don't now. Being that I'm super user, that's probably very dangerous because I don't want people to log in as me. But this is where people get a little bit confused sometimes. The password is case sensitive, not the login, the password. So if somebody types their password in using capitals, you have to always use caps. If it's lowercase, obviously lowercase, and you can mix upper and lower. Now you'll notice that Bob does not have customization group, but I do. So what does customization group do for you? Well, if I'm using the custom office module, which is a very cool and awesome module, by the way, I haven't mentioned that before, I can modify my screen based on a group. So when I say modify my screen, what am I talking about? Well, what I'm talking about is I can change my tab stops on an entry screen, maybe sales order entry or cash receipt entry or purchase order entry. Or I can add user-defined fields. And I can create different groups that if I do these customizations by that group, the people in that group can see those customizations. Now, where does that help you? Well, it helps you if you have larger accounting departments and you want the salespeople to be able to see this or the purchasing people to be able to see this or everybody following the same rule. Doing customization groups are very, very helpful. You'll notice that there is no magnifying glass here, so it is user-defined unless we use the custom office module to create a table for those groups. Another Tech Tuesday, we can talk about that, and actually we did one about a year or so ago. So, expires. I never use this. You guys may want to. Maybe you have temps that will work for the company, and you want their login to expire after a certain point in time. That's purely up to you, however you want to do that. I never use this field. With the 2014 version, you'll notice that an email field was added. Let's go back to Bob's because I have that open. And I actually can click the email button, and it will open my Outlook. So I can start to create an email to Bob. I personally still have never really found a purpose for this, but I'm sure one of you guys probably will eventually. There's also a job title field. Once again, don't know why I would use this, but maybe somewhere along the line, if I'm wanting to print a user list and I want to know, what my users are doing or what job title they have, you can print that on there. Somebody wanted it. Somebody wanted it really bad because Sage put it in there, okay? So now let's go down here and let's talk a little bit about the companies and roles. Now, if somebody has all companies, if you have test companies, copy companies from prior years or payroll or whatever, the all companies encompasses that. So you don't have to list out every single company that you have and have that person assign their role. If they have all companies, they can get into every single company. So, but that's another thing to do backwards. Keep it in mind. If I don't want people in all companies, by gosh, by golly, I do not want to give them this all company. I do want to select, hey, I want them to get into ABC, EEC, and XYZ only. So keep that in mind. Also, a user can have multiple roles. So if I set up a bunch of different roles, like an accounts receivable role, a sales order role, and an inventory role, I can actually add another row for each one of those roles. So if we're building upon what they can do, that's how you do it. You'll notice that there is a start date and expiration date here. Once again, I don't ever use these, but maybe you have a temp or somebody on vacation. Well, Mary's on vacation. Bob's going to do Mary's job, and it's payroll, and she's got a payroll role, so I'm going to give him payroll through the end of next week so he can do her job while she's gone. But after she gets back, I want that security turned off so that he can no longer get into payroll. User preference, whatever you guys like, you go ahead and set it up that way. But I also want you to note a field down here called User Account Locked. This has actually happened to people, and you can lock a user out if they attempt to access the system too many times with a bad password. Now, remember a few minutes ago I told you I was going to show you, how to, tell the system whether or not you wanted passwords. So we're going to take a quick run to there right now. Under the setup in Library Master, you have a system configuration. In system configuration, a couple things about passwords. First of all, you have something called unified login. My personal preference, can't stand it. What unified login means is it will take your network password and use that in the accounting system for your login. And I don't like that. And the reason why I don't like that is, for me, I like 2 levels of security. If someone's going to hack into my network, I don't want them to be able to just automatically get into my accounting system. I want to have another level of security there. That's my personal preference. I actually only have one client that's using unified login, but whatever you guys want to do. You'll also notice that we have this require all users to enter password. If you turn that on, you can, and your IT people will like this, you can require the users to use a strong password. And as you guys know, strong passwords have caps and lowercase and exclamation points, et cetera, so they can require you to do that. They can also say, hey, it needs to be a minimum length. They can force you to change your password after, X amount of days. And this is that lockout that I was talking about. Lock out users after a set number of invalid attempts. So if someone makes 3 attempts, they can no longer get in the software. Then your system administrator has to go back into user maintenance and uncheck that box that says the user account is locked, and then they won't be able to get back in. What I highly recommend is they change the password at that time, because obviously the user doesn't remember it. The other thing I wanted to show you, well, actually, let's go. I'm going to get out of here real quick because I'm not ready to show you that. Okay, so I've got to step ahead of myself. All right, so that is our maintenance tab. So let's look at preferences, and this is kind of where the fun stuff actually starts, is under preferences here. So we have what is called automatic log off, and probably 99.9% of you, this is actually turned off. Because what does it do? Well, if the system sits idle for, in my case, 20 minutes, it's going to log me out. Now, where is this fantastic? Well, when the salesmen go to lunch, they don't log out of their computer, and we're short on licenses, and we know those licenses, so the system will automatically log them out. Or if we have users that have a tendency to not log out at night. And as most of you know, or maybe you don't know, in most backup systems, although this is changing, it doesn't back up open files. So we want the users to be logged out at night so that we're getting a good backup. Now, the one thing I need you to note, if you are using Sage 100 Advanced, which is AKA Mass 200, this doesn't work. So if you just got Giddy, sorry, doesn't work. So, but it's for Sage 100 Standard. Those of you who are Mass 90, it'll work just fine for you. Then I have this implied decimal point. People ask about this all the time. So let's look and see what implied decimal point does. I'm going to go into accounts receivable, and I believe I have a batch out here. I do. So I'm going to create an invoice, and let's just go ahead and choose my ABF company. Oh, goodness, I think I've used this invoice already. Well, that's okay. So we're going to go ahead and go to the lines, and I'm going to add a new line. Actually, let me delete this one because I was playing earlier. Okay, so let's add a new line, and I'm going to come over here to my dollar amount so you can see what the implied does. Now, notice I put in 1, 2, 3, and I put 1 decimal point 2, 3. Okay? All right, so let's go back here. I don't have a sales account. I'm just going to throw an account in here. I know that's wrong, but let's go ahead and accept that. Now, let's go back to our user maintenance, and let's take applied decimal off. Oh, and actually, that was in Bob. So let me go into myself here. So let's take applied decimal off. Let's accept it. I'm going to minimize this, and I'm going to bring that invoice back up, go to my lines. I'm going to choose a widget here, and now I'm going to enter 1, 2, 3. And oh, goodness, look at that. I think I actually have to log out of that screen and then come back in. My apologies. Let's go out. And I close this out. And let's try that one more time. Let's actually create a brand new one. All right. So we're going to come in here, go to our lines, choose our widget. And let's see if my 1, 2, yeah, my 1, 2, 3 worked perfectly that time. You've got to get out of the screen for it to read your change. So notice I did 1, 2, 3, decimal 0, 0. So with the applied on, it was 1.23, applied off 1, 2, 3. I have people ask that question all the time because we get so very used to how we're keying numbers. So that from user to user may be different. Okay. Now, let's go back to our library master here, and I'm going to go to user maintenance. Okay, so back to me, and let's go back to preferences. So that is my implied decimal. Low speed connection, you guys don't need to worry about. Look up for initial display. Let's not worry about that. But let's talk about this one, the enter like tab key for grid. So a lot of people say to me all the time, do I have to enter or tab? Well, if you have this checked on, you can use either. So that is what that is for. So if you take it off, you cannot use your enter key like the tab key. Personally, I prefer it because my hand is closer to the enter button than it is the tab button, and I'm right-handed and rather than left-handed, so I prefer to have that turned on. The other feature in here, display reduction amounts in red. Once again, I like that. Credits are in red, so they're easier to see for our eyes, okay? You will also see over here, use graphic report format. For the majority of us, it's always turned on. It comes as default, it's turned on. But for the majority of this isn't going to matter anyway, because this is for the job cost, MRP, payroll, time card, and work order module, okay? I'll repeat, job cost, MRP, payroll, time card, and work order. So there is a non-graphic report format. It doesn't look very pretty. It's an old Courier type font. So most often you're going to want this turned on. And the reason why it applies only to those modules is because they are still in the old programming language. They have not taken it up to the new programming language that all the other modules are. Okay. Now, here is another favorite of mine that I actually do differently than the majority of our clients, and that is the partial lookup display. This, once again, is a personal preference. So I have it set as begins with. So let's go in customer maintenance and let's see what we're talking about here. So if I click on the magnifying glass and I say customer name and I say begins with B, it's only going to show me the customers that begin with the letter B. Okay? Now, let's go back and let's change this to greater than. This time I'll accept it and exit out the window so I don't mess up again. So I'm going to click my magnifying glass, come here, choose the name, and actually, let's see, how do I want to do this? The greater than, what that's going to do for us is if I do my B, hooey, what it normally it does, and I don't actually have it set properly, but what it'll do is it will show everything that starts with B and then the rest. So where I see this working for me better, and actually part of the problem that I have right now is I have a new feature turned on that I'm not able to show you this like I normally would, but I personally like it starting with the B and then showing the rest. So keep that in mind, and then I'll show you what I'm talking about here in a second of why that I just got myself messed up showing this to you. And that's going to be the autocomplete when we get to that screen. Okay. So if you prefer the greater than where it shows that letter it starts with and then goes all the way to the end of the alphabet, use that. If you prefer just to see the ones with the B, starts with this letter and only with this letter, use that. The prompt for company code is if you have multiple companies that you are required to, that you have active and your users are popping in and out of these company codes, the prompt for company code, when they log into the system, will automatically ask them what their company code is that they wanted to access first. The other feature that I wanted to show you was this default zoom. Now, it defaults in the system to 100%. So what does that mean? Okay, let's look at an aging report. So I'm going to preview this aging report. And notice it's kind of small, a little bit hard for us to read. Okay, so let's go back here. I'm going to go out of this, go back to myself. I'm going to put in 125% because that's the size that I normally like. So I'm going to go here, do the same thing, and notice how much bigger it is. So I like the 125%. Okay, now let's say, though, that you're set at 100%. I'm going to show you another little trick. Let's put this back to 100%. And let's say, for instance, maybe you didn't know or you can't get the person to change it for you. If you come up here and do page width, it will make it the full screen, and it'll automatically make it bigger for you. So that is, you click your down arrow and choose page width, and it fills the whole screen and makes it much, much easier to read. So you can you can tell the system administrator to change your percentage, or you can remember to click that page width button. Auto complete. This is turned on, and that's why my greater than didn't work a little while ago. Autocomplete was added in the 2014 version, or 5.0. And it's turned on for customers, items, and vendors. Okay. What does it do? Well, if I come into customer maintenance and I start typing letters, notice that I hit the B and the B's came up. I hit the R and then the R's came up. Now, for some of our users that have used the system a long time, this is really hard because it's like well, wait a minute, I've got keystrokes down that I normally use. So at this point, I can either hit the down arrow and choose the company that I want, or I can click on it. So where we have a lot of people that like this, especially in inventory, that works out really well to have the autocomplete on an inventory. If you don't like it, it can be turned off per user. So if I don't want it on, maybe I want it on an inventory, but I don't want it in my customers and vendors, I can turn it off. Okay? Now, however, in order to turn it on to begin with, once again, this is a library master function, and it is done in System Configuration on the Preferences tab, and where it says Enable Autocomplete. So if you have the 2014 or the 2015 module or version, and you're not getting the autocomplete, that's why, because this is not turned on. Okay? All right, so that's a lot of stuff on users. There's nothing earth-shattering. I do want to also show you that if you do want to copy from another user, I can put the login name, click on the copy button, and I can copy Bob's. Now it will copy his roles and Bob's preferences. Notice, though, it did not copy his name, so we still had to put Joe's name and code and password, etc. But I do have the same preferences. So if I get, if I'm replacing this person and I want them to be set up just like my other person, that's all I have to do. And we also do have a rename capability. So if I started to use Bob, but I wanted initials instead, I can click on my rename, put in Bob's initials, and now Bob is BB. Okay, you can delete users, but I will tell you they actually do not permanently delete. So if you try to reuse a user's login, it'll ask you if you want to bring it back from history. And then the main reason for that is because a lot of reports and forms and so forth within the system have had that code on there, and we have it out there for history purposes. Okay, so enough about user preferences. Let's talk about the menus and about navigating our screens here. So here we are. This is what I call the detail view, and this is the view that I personally prefer, and a lot of you really hate, which is fine. These are personal preferences. If I click the plus sign next to the modules, it'll list out all of my modules here. Now, once again, this kind of is like Windows Explorer, so sometimes I refer to this as the Explorer view. As soon as I click the plus sign next to my General Ledger, it shows me all my menu items. But I want you to notice if I click on the General Ledger folder, it replaces that start screen, and it shows me all of my folders. Once again, usually what I do, if I'm going to come in here, I'm going to click the plus sign, or actually I'll click the folder that I want, and I will now have all my menu items over here. A lot of people that I work with, they're like, oh, they're cut off, and then they start moving this over. But what I explain to them is if you click on the folder, all your menu items come over here. You can see them plain as day, and you can access them there. So this is, this is kind of my preferred view, but not everybody's. Because a lot of people need to also be able to access their desktop very quick and very easily. So what they do is they collapse their view using this button right here. And if you click on that, it collapses your view to the very top of your screen. So your Sage is running up here at the top. Now, you can easily access your other menu items from here. What I do is I click, and I actually do this when it's full view too, I click on my module code right here, and then it will open up the Switch to module. Now, you can click your down arrow and choose the module you want to switch to, or you can hit the letter. Like if I want accounts receivable, I'm doing an A. If I want accounts payable, I'm going to hit the A again. If I want payroll, purchase order, I'm just hitting a P. But what I want you to do is watch this menu up here at the top. Once I click OK, it's going to prompt me for the date like it always does. And now my menu up here at the top is my purchase order menu, and it shows me that it's purchase order right here. So a lot of folks really like this menu collapse because they can see all of their screen icons behind here and access all their menu items just like they normally would. Okay? And to get it back the way it was, you just click on that detail view again, and there it is. So, and I've actually had folks take that collapsed view
I was working on a user's desktop just yesterday, I think it was, and it was just about 3-4 inches long. So they didn't even leave it very across the top. They just had a little menu over to the right-hand side. Now there is also what they call the cascading view. Another way to get to your modules is click on this module menu item right here, and then if you let it slide out to the side, you can access your screens that way. Personally, I'm that's okay. If I'm going to hit a menu, I'm just I'm either going to go up here and hit it, or I'm going to use it from over here. Now, another way, and actually I was kind of surprised when I found this myself. You can open up your stage and you can click on minimize. So now it's down here in my tray, right? If I click over here to my right, and here I have my Sage icon. If I right-click, I can choose modules, and I can go to any module that I want. So it kind of uses that cascading view. Now, a lot of us, I have a lot of stuff open, which is why mine's not spread across here. But for some people, this might be more ideal, being able just to go this way and then not have to deal with having the menu up at all times. Not my personal preference, but if you need the desktop space, that's a way to do it. Okay. Some of you have noticed that I have some menu items up here at the top, and a lot of us don't know how to get them up there. What I recommend for people who have users that they're only going to do a few things, let's not have them navigate through the menus. We can either put their menus that they're going to use up here at the top, or we can set up their tasks. So how do you get menus at the top? Well, that's actually very easy. If I open up a menu and I want it up there at the top, I just left-click and drag. And bada bing, there it is. Once I click on that, it opens up, and I'm in sales order entry. So this is really good for instance, sales reps that we don't want navigating through the menus, or people who, it's just easier for them just to have the few buttons that they have. I can also take the buttons that we have, and I can rename them, so I can make them smaller. So if I need more real estate up there at the top, I can just rename it, and there it is, and it still works, and it's fine and dandy. So that's one way of doing it, and once again, if you wanted to collapse it and then just have them work along here, you can do that. But there is a way to set up your own tasks. And what you do is you click on the My Tasks menu here, and then you right-click and you say New. Now, I'm going to make mine public folder. So it creates a folder out here, and I would like to rename it because I'm going to rename it based on the type of task that I'm going to do. So I can set up several of these. So I'm just right-clicking, clicking public folder, and I'm going to do a sales order, and I also am going to do an inventory. So now what do I do with these? Well, if I right-click on the folder and hit New, now I can go to Task. So I'm going to go to Accounts Receivable, Main, and I'm going to say, well, I do Customer Maintenance, and now I'm going to right-click again, go to a Task, go to Accounts Receivable, Main, and maybe I do Cash Receipt Entry. Okay? Sales Order, maybe I do Sales Order Entry, and in Inventory, maybe I'm only allowed into Inventory Inquiry. And I accidentally set this folder up, so I'm just going to delete it. So now my tasks have the functions that I normally work in. Once again, great for keeping, streamlining the things that I do on a day-to-day basis. So I can go in Inventory Inquiry, bada bang. If I want to have the system start up where I am seeing my tasks, I go up to View, and I click on this My Tasks. And what will happen is it'll open using those tasks. So let's go ahead and close it and open it, and let's hopefully it doesn't prove me wrong. And here we are at the My Tasks screen. Once again, let's look at it. Let's take that we want to open it using just tasks, so let's see the difference. So now when I open it, I'm back to my regular menu, and then I can click on the My Task button. Now, sometimes people will actually want to take these tasks and, because they don't want the full window open. And this one's always really scary for me, but if you click this little button here, you undocked your software. So you can actually, minimize this if you want once it opens up, and then you can just work off your task, just kind of like we saw in the other menu, and just work off this menu here, instead of the one that we did down here. I can still exit Sage. I can go back in. And sometimes we actually do that on accident. We don't mean to undock our menus. But if I double-click on that top bar, it redocks it. So that's something that has happened to all of us over the years, and it's like, oh my gosh, how do I get that back on there? So these are, many different ways of accessing the software, different ways of seeing the different tasks, and, moving through it. The one thing that I did want to mention today, too, is we've talked about the IDEA site before. This is the website that you can go to that Sage has provided. You can create your own login, and you can vote on different ideas to put into the software. I will tell you, based on the conference call that we had yesterday, quite a few of the enhancements that they're adding to the new version came off of votes from the IDEA site. So if you haven't visited that site yet, you definitely want to do so. And I also wanted to mention, too, that we have a crystal catalog out on our own website. So if there's any crystal reports or anything that you may need, you can go out there and take a look at those and talk to Suzanne and see if you need any of that information. Your crystal reports, obviously, are going to be added to your custom reports menus. Okay, so guys, that is really all I have for you today. I've wowed you so much that I've got no questions, and I do want to tell you that I'm still desperately needing topics for our webinars. So if you can think of anything that you've got coming up that you would really like to talk about, one of the items that we are probably going to be talking about soon are these custom process flows, which actually, excuse me, it's not under custom, it's under, visual process flows here. These are new in the 2014 and up version. A little different way of accessing, another way of accessing the menus. So we will be talking about that in another Tech Tuesday, but if you have any other topics you'd like to talk about, I would definitely love to hear from you. Otherwise, that's all I have for you today. If you have any questions on how to set up users or how to get some of these menu items where you want them, please let us know. Otherwise, have a good day. Try to stay dry, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.